The off day is done with, and we are back to being able to watch Blue Jays baseball, Adam, at least for another 23 games. We're wrapping up. We're
You
coming
giving
to
up
the
on the
end.
playoffs? You don't think
The
we
sun
can?
is setting.
You don't
Oh,
think we
yeah.
can rattle off a
Oh,
streak
yeah.
here?
Fuck a streak. We had to sweep the Twins to even stay delusional. And it wasn't able to be done. Scored 15 runs in one game, and then no scoring in the other games. In fact, if you kind of go over the last 5 games, outside of those 15 runs, only 6 other runs were scored. So feast or famine, this team's offensive woes have not completely gone away. Has this team been much, much better? Yes. And you know what? The fact that throughout August, they were one of the most potent offensive teams in baseball, maybe we can chalk this up to the kids are slumping a little bit. Stuff's going to happen. And they had dug themselves such a huge hole. There was no real way anyways. But we are the walk-off. I'm Scott Belford, joined by Adam Mack. And this is a Monday morning mailbag on a Tuesday afternoon. We comb through all of your interaction every single week. You can always reach out on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast, on Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast. I know we had a couple on Instagram today. YouTube, you can drop your comments below. And if you are a member of the Patreon, obviously, we are very appreciative of you. And you get the Patreon bump, which means if you reach out, you're going to get that comment or question into the mailbag. No doubts about it. So, on that, we will dive in here. Mr. Mack, when you look at this bullpen, before we answer this first question, of the 8 guys in there, and I don't have the list in front of me, but we both more or less know what's in there. Do you think it's safe to say 50% of this bullpen is going to be a different cast of characters by next season?
50%. Yeah, I mean, give or take. We're talking 4
Probably.
guys. So, yeah,
Yeah.
3 to 5 pitchers probably gone. Like, who's back? Romano's back.
Eric Swanson.
Green? Green? Is he still under contract for one more year?
Green's under contract for 1 more year at
I can
11
also see if
million
we moved
bucks.
him this year, though. Like,
Yeah.
if a team saw value that needed a guy. Yeah, Swanson. Those are the safe bets. Everyone else roll the dice. I don't know. It's crapshoot or that's bullpens. That's
It
bullpens.
is
I know we got a
bullpens.
Ryan Yarborough question, so I'll save my thoughts on that
Yeah,
until we get
I
to
do
that.
get a feeling like this pen does need a high-end reliever, maybe a closer, like maybe a full-on top of the pile guy. Nothing against Jordan Romano. Love Romano, and I think his numbers are fantastic. But having a two-headed monster is always a nice thing with a bullpen, and it gives you a little leeway for a guy to struggle for some time, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
not painted into that corner of like, well, he's our guy. We got to go to him. Craig
Mm-hmm.
Kimbrell-esque in
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore, and that's kind of really hurt the Orioles. So they just have no one else to go to. I know there's injuries, and Cano hasn't really been who they were hoping he would be. He's been quite good, but just hasn't stepped into that closer role. So this is a Blue Jay bullpen question.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie reached out on Twitter. Again, that's at Walk Off Podcast. Man, I can't believe how good Ryan Yarborough has been as a Blue Jay. I'm used to hating him from his time with the Rays. Very true. I think most of us Blue Jays fans have a little bit of hate in our heart for Ryan Yarborough and his Tampa Bay Rays days. But
Mm-hmm.
in a Jays uni, he is great. Would you guys bring him back next season? And you know what? You start looking into his numbers, and he has been very impressive. 16.1 innings pitched with the Jays. He's only allowed 9 hits. 4 runs, 4 earned runs, 4 walks, 11 Ks, an ERA of 2.20. And honestly, for a reliever, especially small sample size, ERA is definitely not really the stat to look at. But when you look at his walks, hits, inning pitched, his whip, it is 0.8. So he has been elite in the bullpen for this team. Opponent's batting average, by the way, of 164. Small sample size, 16 innings, but he has been really good. So to go to Jamie's question here, Adam, would you consider a reunion with Ryan Yarborough going into next year?
Are you ever gonna hate this answer from me? But depends on the price tag. Like
Yeah.
he got 3.9 this year, 2.6
Okay.
from the Dodgers, 1.3 from us, $1 million. Uh, I don't know.
Let's say
Has he been
let's
good?
say it's
Sure.
about the same. Let's say it's
No,
about the same. Would you want $4 million put into Ryan Yarborough's pocket?
you're also going to hate this answer, but it depends where we spent the rest of our money. Like if 4 million bucks is going to make or break us, or that's the difference between getting Pete Alonso to play first, or I know it's
Yeah.
not, but I'm just not. I can take it or leave it. He's a 32-year-old career relief pitcher with like slightly above average numbers for us this year. Like they're not blasting my nips.
Yeah.
He's not making us question, is he the closer next year? Did Jordan Romano just lose his job? Like if that was the case, I say sure. Like let's whatever the price tag is, let's secure this guy and whatever. But like this is bullpens. We just touched on it off the top of the show, like how many of these guys are back. And this was last summer when we were a playoff team. I was saying we should trade most of our bullpen pieces because they had exceptionally high value. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is just not sustainable. Like you just all a bullpen is a bunch of lottery tickets that hopefully all hit at the same time. Like a guy can go from throwing a 7.5 ERA in Seattle to the next season pitching a 1.6 ERA in the bullpen for the Astros. Like it's just they're one tweak away, or they're just healthy for the right amount of time, or they just figured it out, but the league hasn't figured them out because that's also kind of a combo, right? Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
they learned if I use my slider more, or oh, if I only throw my changeup 6% of the time. If I start throwing it 11% of the time, boy, does my fastball ever play off of that. And then there is a lag where the rest of the league doesn't figure that out yet, but then they do, and then the league adjusts, and then the magic is gone, right? So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at with like relief pitchers. It's like unless you're a top tier relief pitcher, I don't really care. Like
And
it's
let's face it, Adam, when it comes to blasting nips, Ryan Yarborough has never really been that guy because his skill set is not a sexy skill set. It's not something that most fans get excited about, which is he's a long man who can come in and give you some innings when you need it most. He can go 4 or 5 innings. He
he
can also
doesn't give
come
up a
in.
lot of home runs. That's nice.
Yeah.
Doesn't give up a lot of hits. That's nice. Doesn't give up a lot of walks. That's nice. Also doesn't get you many strikeouts.
No.
6.1 strikeouts per nine this year. Um,
He's a guy I worry about too, Adam, that he is a safety net for this front office because they didn't go out and get a starting pitcher, right? Ryan Yarborough is a dude that you're going to throw out a Tommy Nance or a Ryan Burr in front of him to open the game. You're going to put Ryan out there and hope that he gives you 4 to 5 innings, gets you to the 5th or 6th inning, and then you can run out a bevy, a plethora of relievers to fill in the gap, right? Like he's not really a bullpen piece as much as he is a long man.
is he a long man?
Yeah,
I
sort
guess he did
of.
it kind of with the Dodgers
Yeah,
a few times this year.
yeah. Did it with us
I
a
know
few
he did it.
times. Did it with the
Well,
Rays constantly.
okay, so here's his inning count with the Jays. He's only had 6 appearances, so small sample size. 1 inning, 2/3, 2 inning, 2 inning, 5 inning, 2 1/3.
So there is value in having a guy who normally you bring him out there for 1 to 2 innings, but if you need old rubber arm Yarborough to go 5 innings, he's got it in him.
Well, I'd say every 5 days, that's a question with Bowden Francis. I
Yeah.
think, although I will
And
say,
Yariel Rodriguez for that matter. Like if those
sure,
if you're not filling this starting rotation with a guy in free agency or a trade, then your 4-5 is going to be Yariel and Bowden, which means you're really rolling the dice.
so Bowden Francis, who obviously had a terrible start to the year
Mm-hmm.
and has definitely surged in his last few starts.
Yeah.
Um, 7 innings, 7 innings, 8 innings, 7 innings, giving up 1 run, 0 runs, 1 run, 0 runs. So
6
two earned
hits in
runs
those
in his
29
last.
innings, by the way.
Right. This is against the Angels, the Cubs, the Angels again, and the Red Sox. I would say we've had this talk about Vladdy and oh look, sure he can hit when the pressure's off, right? Like, is this the real Vlad, or is next year when we're a contender again, is he going to be trying too hard and the pressure and all that bullshit? Same thing with the kids. Oh, the kids are really doing good when the games don't matter and blah blah blah. I would say Bowden Francis is like top of my list of guys who is a candidate. Let me just say a candidate
Mhm.
for giving us fake numbers.
Yeah.
Because I would say he's no longer like at the start of the year, it was okay, I'm in the big leagues. I have a chance to earn a job. We hadn't given up on Alek Manoah for the year yet, right? Like there was someone nipping at his heels potentially, right? Ricky Tiedemann wasn't done for the year. He was all off season discussed as a guy that could make his MLB debut this year, right? Like, so there was a lot of pressure on Bowden Francis to give us better than a 5 ERA,
Mhm.
and he gave us much worse than a 5 ERA. Into June, he was still over 5 by the end of June.
Which is wild as he sits at like 3.5 now or something
Right,
ridiculous.
yeah. So as of August 4th, he had a 5.6 ERA, and now he has a 3.6 ERA. So yeah, I mean, throwing 35 innings with 2 runs will help your ERA for sure. But I think he has benefited more than anyone from the opportunity to be like, hey man, we're just riding out the season. Like if you get blown up in the first inning, you're still pitching 6. Like we don't need to win these games. We just need to get through them.
Mhm.
Right? So like relax. And I think he's benefiting from that. A little bit of a soft schedule, sure. Like I don't want to discredit it entirely on the Angels suck and whatever. That is definitely a factor. But I think there's definitely something that goes into his mind when he goes to the ballpark and he goes, I'm not getting yanked.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go out and throw 100 pitches today. So if the first base runner of the game gets on, there isn't a mental tailspin going on, whereas maybe there would have been at the start of the year, right? Where it's like, oh, first guy gets on,
Yeah.
second guy walked. Oh shit, my ERA is going to be 12 after this, and it's like you've only faced 2 batters, man. Relax. I don't know if that's the case. I'm just saying he is a stronger candidate than anyone I've seen for like maybe these are just bullshit numbers.
Trust your shit and let it eat is what Bowden Francis says. And he has been doing that over the last 4 starts. I do agree with you, Adam, although I will say the addition of the splitter and the way they've used it within the pitch sequencing has been, I mean, let's face it, it's been black magic to the opposing hitters. It kind of reminds me a little bit of a Coca-Cola, right? A can of Coke, right? Just a regular old pop. But then you take a fresh maker, right? You take the Mentos and you throw it in there. That's the splitter. Gives it a little fizz, gives it a little bit of attitude. And that's the hope, is that Bowden Francis has found something, although I will say 28 years old, pressure's off, lots of reasons to take into account what he's doing right now, but maybe not just give him carte blanche and penciling him in as our number 4 starter in 2025. If there's a happy medium we can find between those two, I think that would be the way to approach Bowden Francis.
But back to the Mentos and Coke thing.
Okay.
In the early days of Mentos and Coke, first person to ever do it, probably wrecked their kitchen, right?
Yes.
Oh shit, that was way more violent than I expected it to be, right? Probably told a buddy, hey, you should do this. It makes your Coke taste extra delicious or whatever, right?
Yeah.
The guy fell for it, got pranked, ruined his kitchen.
Yes.
That guy tells his aunt, his cousin, whatever.
Right.
Everybody's getting their kitchens wrecked. All of a sudden, everybody knows don't put your Mentos in your Diet Coke. It'll wreck your kitchen. So everyone starts doing it in the backyard. It's not wrecking your kitchen. Now it's just fun.
Yeah.
Maybe he's got a splitter and it's wrecking all these hitters. But eventually they're going to figure out, oh, he throws a splitter and they're going to have fun with it.
And that's the big thing, right? Is that the league adjusted to Francis, then he has readjusted by...
To his credit, he has adjusted.
To his credit.
I am pooping on him, but I will give credit where credit's due. Adding a splitter is him
integrating a
adjusting.
new pitch. And that's difficult too, by the way, to just add a pitch to your repertoire, and especially a pitch that he's using at such a frequency that he is, and that is working so well. So what the real test is going to be is when the league adjusts again. And how does Francis deal with that? Where are we at that point? Only time will tell. But my goodness, has he ever nailed throwing that splitter? It has been just so much fun to watch him over the last month. Player of the month, by the way, on the pitching side of things in the American League. So when you throw 29 innings and only allow 6 hits, that's something the league is going to pay attention to. That's the other thing to keep in mind. Bowden Francis, obviously flying under the radar, maybe even not given the opposing players, double checking that book, double checking that iPad, right? Maybe he's kind of
they roll in, they look at the schedule, they go, oh, a guy with a 7 ERA? I don't even need to stretch today.
And that's not going to happen anymore. Believe me.
His next start's against the Phillies.
Highlighted. Exactly.
So he's going to get a real test. I mean, as much as we can crap on the Angels twice, the Cubs, and the Red Sox, he's got a real test tomorrow against the Phillies. So we'll see. I don't know. I will admit, if he goes out and throws 8 shutout innings against the Phillies, that'll be a tough one for me to ignore. Yeah.
It's getting harder and harder to ignore Bowden Francis. Like, that is the truth of this little run he's on. Yeah. And again, that goes league-wide. He's not slipping through the cracks anymore. He's going to be given plenty of attention and plenty of analytic works back in the video room with these hitters. So we'll see how it all plays out. In the meantime, enjoy it. And long story short, sure, bring back Ryan Yarborough if it... I don't know. Who cares?
I always love to wrap up a Ryan Yarborough comment with 15 minutes on a different person.
Yeah, it's the way to go. It's his story of his career, right? Next one comes from Josh. He DM'd us on Twitter, and he just sent a stat, and it's a fun little stat, actually. The American League Central is 38 games under 500. The AL Central has 5 teams, as every division does. 4 of them are over 500.
That's cool.
Josh goes, I hope you guys can talk about this on Mailbag, but what a wild statistic for so many reasons. When you get over the initial shock of it and the impact that the Chicago White Sox have had, there's that weight. The Central has 4 good teams, question mark, exclamation mark. So, number one, my God, dude, is the White Sox ever historically bad? I mean, literally, this is going to be one of the worst teams in Major League history, if not the worst. have the teams in the AL Central improved from last year? I think you would need to be really burying your head in the sand to say they have not. Although, Adam, I will ask you this. Would the Detroit Tigers, the Minnesota Twins, the Cleveland Guardians, and the Kansas City Royals, would all four of them be above 500 if they didn't get to play the
They
White
didn't have.
Sox 13 times a year?
That's a good question. I mean, the Guardians, yes. I feel like the Twins and the Royals, probably.
Probably. I don't think the Tigers
Tigers,
would be.
well, they're only one game above 500 right now. So I
Mhm.
think that answers your question,
Yeah.
right? Unless they're have a losing record against the White Sox this year, which I don't think they do. Let me have a look here while you keep talking. But
This is the thing with having a god awful team in your division is you do get to beat up on them, and it's why the AL East is still the best division in baseball, in my opinion, because the Toronto Blue Jays are sitting dead last, and they're just a few games under 500 right now. I think they're 5 games at this point, but if they got to play the Chicago White Sox a bunch more, let me tell you, the Toronto Blue Jays are the Detroit Tigers. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much credit I want to give the AL Central teams here. Pipe in, grounds crew. Drop your comments. Is it impressive that there's 4 teams above 500 in the AL Central?
can I tell you this? Looking at the season series between the White Sox and the Royals, White Sox and Twins, White Sox and Tigers, and White Sox and Guardians. Kansas City leads the series this year 7-1.
Okay.
Minnesota 10-1 against the White Sox. The Tigers 9-1 against the White Sox. The Guardians, best team in the division, 5-5.
Baseball, eh?
That's baseball, baby.
That's baseball, baby. The fucking Guardians are 5-5. Of course they are. I was waiting for you to just be like, the Guardians, 10-0. Like, just
Yeah.
no, of course they're not. No, but it
No.
is an interesting stat that a division can be 38 games under 500 and only one of those teams is doing the lifting.
Yeah. They are on the MLB record for most losses in a season is the 1962 New York Mets. It was their first season in the league, an expansion team, lost 120 games. Um, the White Sox are on pace for 126 losses.
So bad.
So
Just so bad. All right, moving on to a DM on Instagram. And you can always reach out on Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast. Millie says, hey, Walk Off. Hoping to get a question in mailbag for Tuesday. Well, congrats, Millie. That is success on your part. I was listening to Sportsnet Radio the other day, and they were talking about Will Wagner and Spencer Horwitz and really made it sound like it's one or the other next season. Why is it such a big deal for both of them to be on this team next year? I love this question, by the way.
okay.
Will Wagner, one of the returning pieces in the Yusei Kikuchi to Houston trade, second baseman, lefty bat, doesn't hit a lot of home runs. He's a big doubles guy, high on base percentage, high average, and Spencer Horwitz is pretty much the exact same thing. Now, the handedness is really what kind of does these two in, and the fact that positionally they are mirror images of each other. It's really tough to do any sort of um, getting involved with splits and who plays where, depending on the handedness of the pitcher when they're both lefties like this. again,
Uh-huh.
we watched this team go into the 2024 seasons with redundancies that wound up hurting them in the biggest possible way. They went into 2024 carrying both Dalton Varsho and Kevin Kiermaier as their center fielders, reducing the value Varsho has as a center fielder by just, again, a redundancy, two lefty bats that don't have a lot of power. Dalton can hit, a few dingers out, but for the most
Mhm.
part, they profile as very similar players. Same thing with Ernie Clement and IKF. And you know what? These are resources that could have gone to areas of need, places where they definitely could have allotted that money in a more efficient way. And I think that is why the Will Wagner, Spencer Horowitz talk is being had, is that they're clearly redundant.
Yeah. I mean, they do both have positional versatility though, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
Spencer
Can play
first,
some first.
left field, second base, Will first, second, and third.
Yeah, a little third.
I mean, if you have two lefties that are hitting good and don't necessarily play the same position,
You can make it work.
you can make it work. But I think the reason the talk is only one of them is because this team is going to make another push this offseason
Mm-hmm.
at righting the ship because their jobs are on the line. Like, make no bones about it. Ross Atkins, if he's back at all, has one last kick at the cat. So is he last year? It felt like, okay, well, we're just gonna rerun it, right? Like we took our shot at Shohei, didn't work out. That would have been cool. It's fine. The players are still good. On paper, this team's still great, blah, blah, blah. All that bullshit. Do you think Ross Atkins is looking at this group of rookies and saying, yeah, these guys are thriving. This is the playoff team that I'm gonna stake my future in baseball on? There's no way,
No.
right? Like, does Ross Atkins get another job as a GM after this, after what he's done in Toronto?
I would say no. And a big reason why I'm saying no here, Adam, is that when they did a league wide poll as to the best front offices
Mm-hmm.
in baseball, naming the top 20, the Toronto Blue Jays did not get a
Right.
singular vote. So I don't know who's
Okay.
going to line up to grab them.
He has made some positive moves, right? Like
Absolutely.
getting Robbie Ray was awesome. Marcus Simeon was awesome. Like there are more moves than that that were just as awesome that he made.
Ryan Yarborough.
Ryan Yarborough. The Ross Stripling worked out great. Like there was some moves that you just point to and you go, this guy's a wizard.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the overall vibe across the league is any good moves he did are discredited by the fact that he inherited Bo Bichette and Vlad Guerrero Jr. Those weren't him and his team drafting two superstars or signing two, like, yeah, there were other ones, but he inherited those guys and got two playoff appearances, I think,
Mm-hmm.
with zero total wins.
Yeah.
Am I
I
I
mean,
feel like
3
that's
if you
right,
want to
but
count. You can, well,
sure, the COVID season.
yeah.
Yeah. So whatever, that's fine. I just maybe he gets another job, maybe he doesn't. But I'm just saying he definitely does not definitely get a job. Like, so he has to be aware of the fact that, like, okay, my time with the Blue Jays is at jeopardy here. But
Yeah.
beyond that, my time in baseball is in jeopardy here. Like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe he gets like a consultant thing or a Excel spreadsheet wizard position with some other team or something. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm sure he has skill sets, contract negotiation, maybe. I don't know, like, whatever it is. But I don't think he gets the helm of another franchise.
See, and a good
once he's done.
example
So
of
I think
this,
he's
a good example of what you're talking about is look at the way James Click was
scooped up.
fired after 2022. He was instantly scooped up. AJ Hinch was involved in one of the biggest scandals to hit baseball in decades. They were lined up to hire him after his suspension was
Mhm.
over. So, you know what? I'm with you. There isn't going to be that league-wide excitement that there's a stud front office guy on the open market when Ross Atkins is out there. There just won't be, and he might get a job, but he won't be a
Well,
general manager again.
it's easier to get excited about unrealized potential than it is to get excited about veteran with no success. Right? So like the way like you just if you are a Cincinnati Reds or whoever, and you're like, okay, like we're not really happy with whatever, and we want to get our next guy. You're looking for a guy who was like a number two with the Dodgers or a number two with the Rays, right? Like a guy who like, you can really sell to your fans and to your owner that like, hey, this guy was the real brainchild behind all the Rays' success, and now he's ours, right? And so you get that, and you go, okay, he's never been a GM before, but like he was around that dominant franchise for a decade. Yeah, let's
Mhm.
see what he could do as the GM. That's exciting. That's way better than like oh, well, this guy sure knows how to make a phone call and cut a guy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. This guy really knows how to hold a press conference and apologize to a disappointed fan base. Let's get that guy. Like, so yeah, I
You
would say
won't believe the apology.
you won't believe the apology. So that's where I'm like, back to the Will Wagner, Spencer Horwitz thing. I just think he is going to fucking spend every dime that he fucking can this offseason because his entire future as a sports person is riding on this offseason. There is no more like prospects are going to get traded, stars are going to get traded, big names are going to get signed. We're going to overpay. Hate to break it to you. You don't like the George Springer contract in year 4, 5, and 6? Be prepared for maybe overpaying some veterans who are going to be good in year 1, but in year 2 through 7 are going to be a fucking anchor that Ross Atkins won't have to deal with because he'll be gone.
Mhm.
But for 1 year, he's going to have a shot. And I think we're going to see some contracts like that this offseason. That's what I think.
It's going to be
So
interesting.
I think
This
as part of
honestly,
that, that's where you look at a Will Wagner, Spencer Horwitz conversation, and you go, yeah, we only have room for one of these guys because we're going out and we're signing
whoever it is.
Santander for 11 years because that's
Yeah.
the only way he's going to come to Toronto. And the
Yeah.
first two are going to be great, and then he's going to be fucking dog shit. But we're going to have one run, and we're going to overpay to make it happen. That's what I think. I
Yeah.
think he'd be an idiot not to if he has any power left to save his life and career or whatever. But then again, he's shown incompetence, so maybe he does just roll the fucking team back and goes, "Yeah, I got confidence in my guys." I don't
Yeah.
know.
Wouldn't be the
Who
first
knows?
time he did it. Okay, going to Patreon. Of course, if you are a member of Patreon, we thank you greatly. We could not run the channel without you. And you get that Patreon bump if you are a member, meaning you automatically get your questions and comments in the mailbag. Brian Crawford, longtime Patreon member,
Nice.
one
Hi,
of
Brian.
those upper level Patreon members. So an extra added a bow, a weighty bow to the Sir Brian Crawford.
Sir
Uh,
Brian Crawford, yes.
so Brian says, and he's commenting on the interview we had with Pat Malacaro, who is the play-by-play
Play
announcer
by
for the
play.
Buffalo
Yes.
Bison. He, of course, took over for Ben Wagner when Wags got the call up to Toronto to cover the team on the radio here. Of course, Ben Wagner kicking butt. on the TV side of things in Baltimore
Mm-hmm.
now, which is cool to see. All the
Mm-hmm.
best to Ben Wagner. Of course, he's an
Mm-hmm.
old friend of the show from way back when. Nice to see his predecessor coming on the show, though. He had so many interesting stories to tell about the Buffalo Bisons. And if you're just someone who likes the in the weeds sort of stuff when it comes to the Blue Jays and the Bisons and the minor league system and the kind of Buffalo baseball and Buffalo in general, if you
Mm-hmm.
missed it, check it out because it really was a
Mm-hmm.
great interview. Brian said, Pat is awesome. Great interview. So, pretty much everything I just said there, Brian reiterated. Deb reached out. Deb, also a longstanding Patreon member. Always appreciate hearing from you, Deb. She
Sir
said,
Deborah.
Sir Deborah.
I don't know what lady nights get called.
Lady Nights. Uh, I don't know. That's a really good question.
Like, you would say
Madam
sir or
Knight?
ma'am, I
Yeah.
think, but ma'am feels disrespectful in today's day and age. Feels like Deb's far too young to be a ma'am. So I don't know.
Far too young. Far too young to be a man. So Deb says, excellent effort with toxic positivity, guys. Better than I expected. So this is from last mailbags
Mm-hmm.
episode where we were challenged to get delusional and try and enjoy the last little glimmer
Can
of
we make
hope.
the playoffs? Be
Can we
positive
make the
about it.
playoffs? And we did. We
We
tried our
did.
best to jump right off the deep end. And reality, look at us. 1 week later, reality has slapped us right in the face, right? It's like, all right, we
Mm-hmm.
play out these last 23 games and we hope for the best. um, Johnny Eaton reached out. Another long-standing member of the Patreon. The OGs are getting their voices heard
Mm-hmm.
this time around. So he says Ohtani has turned into a pretty pure slugger. His average has been dipping, but he just keeps walking and hitting home runs. And when he walks, he steals. So incredibly valuable. I mean, Shohei definitely in the talks for another MVP award. Looks like he might be the first guy in history to steal 50 bases and hit
And hit
50 home
50 home
runs. He's
runs.
currently sitting at 46 steals and 44 dingers. Again, 23 games to go. He could do it. He absolutely could do it.
Yeah, Dodgers pretty secure where they're at in their playoff race. So I don't know why you wouldn't just encourage Shohei, hey, every time you go out there, try and hit a dinger. Like, you know,
Yeah.
there's no need for him to be like, oh yeah, situational hitting. Just need to put the ball in play here and drive that runner in from third. Like, no, like, come on, man. Get 6 good cracks for the rest of the season. Let's get it. He'll get 50 stolen bases for sure. 4 away with like
So,
what, 25 games left?
yeah. So, Mr. Mac, I know derailing our train of thought just seems to be the name of the game here. So I don't mean to fall
Please.
into this this trap we're always in and be constantly doing this. But have you heard the rumors that Ohtani is going to be geared up to try and start pitching come playoffs time? And my question for you is, if he can do it, do you want Shohei starting pitching in the most important time? Like, do you trust him? And like, he's
That's a
obviously an
good
incredible
question.
pitcher, but do you want to see a guy who has, and he's their DH and he's the one of the most valuable hitters in all of baseball. It's not like they're going to send him down to AAA to get a few rehab starts in him. It's not happening.
Yeah.
Do you feel all right doing that, or would you prefer? Okay, so I'm throwing so many questions at you, and my apologies.
Mhm.
Do you want to see him starting? The other option, do you say, I don't even care if I see him starting, but boy, oh boy, seeing that big lefty throwing 101 out of the bullpen in high leverage situations would be fun. Do you feel comfortable with that? Or do you say, you know what, Shohei, we know you're a stud pitcher. We totally, if this was April or May or June, you would be in there, but we're going to roll with the guys that have gotten us here. You just hang tight, keep stealing bases, keep hitting dongers.
Oh, yeah, it's a tough one. I don't want him starting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess it depends what the Dodgers starting rotation is health wise. Looks like Glass now, Kershaw, Flaherty, Gavin Stone, Walker Bueller. Kershaw and Glass now are both on the 15-day IL.
Mm-hmm.
If he had to like cover a Kershaw start, like I guess it's probably better than whoever your best guy in AAA is, right? I
Mm-hmm.
guess it's like the Michael Jordan flu game, right? Like Michael Jordan with the flu is still better than everyone else in the league.
Yeah.
It's kind of where I feel like with Shohei, like Shohei day one pitching in spring training is still. I know he's not the best pitcher. Like what he is the most talented baseball player of our generation, hands down. He's not the best pitcher of our generation. He's not the best hitter. But to do both is where
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
really shines, right? So like I don't want to come in and be like, "Oh, he is the runaway Cy Young favorite year in, year out," because he's not, right? Like,
Yeah.
but top 10 pitcher in his league is fucking wild. But is he ramping up from zero better than your best guy in AAA? Maybe not. I
Yeah.
don't know. I wouldn't
Especially
feel good
considering
about
how
it.
good the Dodgers pitching is organizationally, like they do have a lot of youthful high-end prospects. I don't know though, man.
Yeah, I mean, like out of the bullpen, I feel like is a no-brainer. Like that's just an easy, hey, we're up 7-1 in the eighth. Bring in Shohei. Let's see what he can do. Like, so if he wants to work towards an opportunity like that, I think that's cool. I like just the cool stories of baseball, like
Yeah.
Jansen playing for both teams in the Red
Yeah.
Sox Jays game. That stuff's just cool, right? So like, yeah, Shohei, I mean, I don't have any ill will for him not coming to Toronto. I don't hold that against him, even
No.
one iota. But yeah, just give me the
And
cool
how much
stuff. I hope,
Every time Shohei Ohtani gets talked about, Yankees fans get a little squirrely, and I love that.
yeah.
Eh,
Like I root for
baseball's
him
not
for
talking
getting
about Judge. Sorry.
or so now. Yeah, I mean, I hope he gets 50-50 because just the fact that it's like never been done before, and that would be super cool.
And humans love
Um,
round numbers. 50-50, that's nice, round, even numbers.
it's perfect. It's the best way to get to 100. Um, did hold on. Okay, so Barry Bonds as a 25-year-old stole 52. So there has been at least one other career 50-50 guy. I was wondering if
Yes.
that's even ever been done. Has a guy ever stolen 50 in his career and hit 50 at different points? So that's been done. But in the same
By
season, it's
non
just
by
wild.
non Hall of Famer Barry Bonds. That's who it's been done by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had just kept trying a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Shohei, what I want him pitching, like, yeah, from a marketing standpoint, there's value there. I don't know if he gives you like an it. Oh man,
It's tough
what
because he
I
hasn't pitched all year. That's the thing. Like, if we were
he
just
hasn't
talking, do you
pitched all
want
year.
Shohei in your lineup? If it's typical, has pitched all year long Shohei? I mean, that's the stupidest question ever because obviously, yes, you do.
Sure. But yeah, like if you're looking at okay, your Dodgers versus Diamondbacks, it's game two. You lost game one, it's game two, and you got a 1-run lead in the seventh inning. It's you're up 5-4, and you're bringing Shohei Ohtani out. I don't know,
Yeah.
man. That's wild to me. But
Yeah.
also, he is like a competitor, like
He
nobody
is.
else.
And
So
it is
like
what legends are made of, right?
that's the thing, right? It's like when you've got just special guys, I don't ever want them to not be in the special moments. Like I just feel like he would just willpower his way to success. Like I feel like he would just come out and throw 9 straight strikes and sit down the side. Like it would
Yeah.
just be something like, "Oh, yeah, his first appearance of the season. Of course he did. In the most highest leverage opportunity. Of course he just had an immaculate inning. Like why wouldn't he?" Right? So it's like, yeah, give me that guy over the 32
Yeah.
year old guy making league minimum who's having a good season. Yeah, give me Shohei Ohtani for sure. Yeah, I've talked myself into it. Yeah.
All right, we've got two more mailbag questions to get to here. They are from YouTube. This is a comment from Muscle Rarton. He's commented before,
Nice.
and I love the handle. Great
It's a great
name.
username.
This is on our Tuesday mailbag show from last week. He goes, old wounds, but
Hmm.
feel there's lots of blame to share for the last two playoff blunders. Yes, you can blame Shatkins for hiring a rookie MLB manager in the first place to coach a contending team. If Schneider is just a puppet, then all the more reason to discard him as well, praying the entire management team gets replaced. Doesn't look like they're going to, does it, Adam?
I don't think so.
I mean, we need to wait and see what happens at the end of this season. And I know that Mark Shapiro, president of baseball operations, in his last press conference, that's pretty much what he said when he was questioned about it, is like, I don't comment on people's jobs during the season. But it sure doesn't feel like there is an internal push to change voices from within, change coaching. Do you think that Ross Atkins is the guy? Like, do you think the Shapiro Atkins combo of decision making, do they get another kick at the can?
I think so. I think so. Like, I don't know.
I know.
Shapiro is good at getting money out of the ownership office. There is like a weird dynamic that it is like a board of owners, not a singular owner. So like credit to him for convincing the board to spend money. Like that's a real skill that I think he gets credit for that. I think publicly, like it's not like nobody doesn't give him credit for that. That's one of the few things that he does get credit for a lot. And I think it's honestly worth quite a bit. Like I don't think that's the easiest waters to navigate. And he's demonstrated he can do that. Now, where they spend their money, again, that's another question, but also, I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, I think Shapiro's back for sure. And then I just don't know if he's wanting to depart from Ross Atkins. So I don't know. It'll be an interesting off season. I think when's the season end? Season ends on our
September
last game of the
29th.
season, September 29th. October 1st, Ross Atkins is still a Blue Jay. Does that mean he's a Blue Jay for the year? Like how soon do you want to see him fired? Like at what point in the offseason do you go, oh, if we were gonna fire him, he'd be gone by now. Right? I
So
know.
going by last year, Ross Atkins had his press conference 24 hours pretty much. Not the next morning, but the morning after they were eliminated by the Minnesota Twins in the wild card. And then he took John Schneider and his entire body and he got under him, right? A little lift, boom, into traffic, right?
Mhm.
Right into that bus that was coming. And then Mark Shapiro, 3 days later, had to come out and be like, cleaned it all up and was like, I'm so sorry. Obviously, we're all accountable. Ross didn't mean that he wasn't accountable. We'll eventually trot Ross back out there to calm waters in like 3 months, and everyone will be so happy to hear from him. So if we're just going by last year, that's kind of the playbook is a day or two after the end of the season, Ross Atkins will come out, blame John Schneider, and then we'll wait to see what happens when Mark Shapiro comes out. So I don't know, man. That's the playbook they've laid out in the past. So
Yeah,
yeah, I would say you're right. If Ross Atkins still at the helm October 1st, I think it's probably pretty safe to say they're running this front office back as is. Now, will there be some changes amongst the coaching staff? Can we see John Schneider being moved? Like, are they going to give Ross Atkins the ability to replace the manager for a third straight time? Or not straight, but, for a third time? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think they would. Like, if this is how the conversation goes, if the board at Rogers tells Shapiro, hey, you're good. We like what you're doing. I know the product of the field hasn't been what we wanted, but we like what you've done with the renos, and ticket sales are up and ad revenue's up and blah, blah, blah. We like what you're doing. You're secure. You got 1 year left on your deal or whatever, but we're gonna extend you at some point. Like, we have every intention of extending you. You're safe. And then he goes to Ross Atkins and he says, hey, buddy, I'm good, but you really got to show something or else you're gone. I don't,
There's
I
good
don't,
news and bad news, Ross.
yes, yes. I'm flying to Minnesota to open a company, which is a reference nobody will get.
No one will get.
Um,
It's fine.
but hi, Joel, by the way. Nice. If
Yes.
you're listening, hi, Joel gets it. Um, I, I think Shapiro would not like Schneider to be fired if his intention is to fire Ross Atkins next year,
Yeah.
because he goes, well, if James Click is going to take over, or whoever is going to take over, they're going to want to bring in their own new manager.
They're
They're
going to
not
want
going
to
to want to
fire
be
their own people. Yeah.
right. No, but they're not going to want to like just inherit Ross
Of
Atkins
course.
manager and be like, oh yeah, we got to keep this brilliant guy around. They'll be like, no, see ya. And then that looks worse, I think, even like by association with Mark Shapiro. It looks bad for the Blue Jays to be like, you know, Schneider didn't work out, but he was here for 4 years. Versus, oh yeah, we had Montoya, and then we had Schneider, and then we had Higgins, and
Yeah.
now the new guy's bringing in another guy. It's just
Yeah.
like, ooh. It doesn't look good, like for
No,
the fans that
agreed.
you're trying to sell. It does look like a little bit chaotic and unstable, even more so than it probably really is in reality. So I would say Schneider's probably good for the year if Ross Atkins is still here. If Ross Atkins is gone October 1st, I would say Schneider hot seat. Not necessarily gone, because I don't think he's been a bad manager. Like, I don't. I think a
No.
lot of it has been underperforming players and, you know,
Yeah.
but I don't constantly look at John Schneider and go, what the fuck are we doing here?
I actually will be honest. I pull my hair out less with John Schneider over the last 6 months than I did 18 months ago. So
Yeah.
either he's improving or I am just becoming more tolerant of it. I don't know. Either way, I think it's
Yeah.
a
You know
safe
what?
bet that if Ross Atkins is back, John Schneider is back.
You've climbed into the cold bath and your skin has adjusted to the painful cold water.
Now let's start boiling that sucker. Yeah.
Let's start boiling. Crank that heat, baby.
All right. Getting to the final question slash comment of the mailbag, and I actually love this. So this is a thread on
Mhm.
YouTube. People are replying. Number one, I will say to you, the grounds crew members, thank you so much for being respectful and kind amongst each other. Whenever there are interactions on the internet that seem like they would be just fine to be had in person, you got to be like, wow, what a giant W this is. So great job, everybody. This is from Brockford, and he responds, or he comments, this is a good playoff team in my mind. Hitting leadoff, number one, George Springer playing right field, Anthony Santander as the DH hitting second, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. playing third base, hitting third, Bo Bichette hitting cleanup, playing shortstop, Spencer Horwitz playing first base and hitting fifth, Aroldis Martinez hitting sixth and in at second base, Joey Loperfido, I should say, left field hitting seventh, Alejandro Kirk in at eight, and Dalton Varsho bringing it in that 9-hole and playing center field. So before we get to replies, let's just start with your thoughts on that lineup, Adam, because my first thought when I see it is if this is actually going to contend in 2025, I would like to see Aroldis Martinez force his way onto the big league team, especially after dealing with an 80-game PED suspension, which is over in a couple of days here. He'll probably be joining, and who knows what happens? He might not even rejoin the Buffalo Bisons. They may just tell him, listen, you know what? Sit the rest of the year. You'd only get another week of playing time in anyways, and maybe we go and send you to the Dominican Republic to play some play some winter ball, get some innings in that way. Start you at AAA and see where you go. I don't really like the idea of a rookie starting out of spring training on this lineup. The other thing that stands out to me is we need another big bat in there. I like the addition of Anthony Santander in this scenario, but I think that you need even more outside help than Brockford has said here. Thoughts on the lineup that he laid out for us, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, George Springer as our leadoff doesn't make me excited.
Yeah.
It feels like plan C. Yeah, like Santander would be good. I think he would be the replacement that we've been missing in Teoscar Hernandez for the past 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Right? He is 29. He'll be 30 in a month. So that does feel like the Ross Atkins overpay to give him the extra year. Like, league's offering him 6 years at $100 million, and Ross is like, we'll give you 7 at 150. And he goes, all right, we'll see you in Toronto.
Yeah.
And then we get a good year or two out of him, and then 5 years that it's just like, how are we fucking paying this guy $27 million to hit 211 and 14 home runs? What
the George
fuck?
Springer, if you will.
Right. So, yeah, I don't know. The rest of the lineup here, like Horowitz at first, Vladdy at third, like, you know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
Loperfido at left field also feels like a fail to me. Like, I just don't know why we wouldn't go out and sign someone, or like the
And
corner
you know
outfields. That's
what?
our spots to upgrade. That's the easiest place to upgrade. You throw money at it and you get a power bat. We don't need to fuck around with a guy who's maybe a 4A guy, or a Davis Schneider who like, oh, well, he showed he could do it, or like, oh, there's upside, or like, no, like that's fine. But not if we're like a contender and it's like, hey, it's our last year with Bo. Let's fucking go all in. Like, then actually go all in. Let's not, this half-ass shit is, oh, we got Santander and then promoted a couple kids from AAA. Like, fuck off.
And
Not
listen,
the commenter, but like
no,
just the idea that this is enough to be a playoff team is like,
No. And I really like Joey Loperfido. I really do think that there is a lot of room to grow in this kid. Plays all of the outfield positions. And I would love to see him break with this team out of spring training in that fourth outfielder role where he can continue to get almost every day at bats. And if there's an injury, he's going to be given the opportunity to be the guy. But I think if you are legitimate about contending in 2025, hate the idea of a middle of the order that is Horowitz, Martinez, and Loperfido. And I like all three of those guys.
we can't expect to make the playoffs if our 3 outfielding positions have a combined batting average of 211 and combined for 34 home runs.
Yes, 100%.
So Loperfido, Springer, and Varsho. Those are 3 offensive black holes. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like 26 of those home runs are going to come from Varsho. And then we get 5 to 6 from Loperfido and 5 to 6 from Springer. Like, that's whatever, maybe 10. But like, that's not.
Again, and I'm just bringing this up because I know there will be a bunch of you coming to the defense of Joey here. We're not saying Loperfido doesn't have a lot of potential. You just need to remember, look at how many games he's played in Major League Baseball. Is this the guy that you want to put all of your hopes of contending of 2025 on? It's not fair to him, and it's not going to work. Like, you just can't have a team in this AL East where you're relying on Joey Loperfido to provide a bunch of offense for you. You just can't.
Joey
Maybe in the AL
Loperfido,
Central.
64 games for Joey Loperfido at the major league level. That's 26 with us, 38 with the Astros.
25
Has a
years old.
223 batting average, an OPS of 642. That's 20 points below league average for his position. Like,
If we were rebuilding in 2025,
sure,
Joey
sure.
Loperfido all day long.
Yeah, that's fine. And then whatever. He's a stopgap player, but it is what it is. I mean, Davis Schneider played 35 games last season, had a 276 batting average, an OPS of 1008, 74 points above league average. And we gave him a spot on the team. I mean, we didn't give it to him, but like we didn't have anybody else to take it away from him.
Yeah.
And like, what's he hitting this year? 116 games for Davis Schneider. He's hitting 194 with an OPS of 624. He shaved 100 points off his OPS plus from plus 174 to 77. Like,
A full season of baseball can provide a lot of things.
yeah, so like any of these rookies, and it's the same thing with like a Relvis Martinez, even without the PED suspension this year. Like, even
Yeah.
if he just stayed in AAA and like the team was just built in a different way where we didn't need all these call ups, so we were able to keep him in AAA, and he was fucking blasting down
Bashing.
there.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, well, we've got some veterans that are moving on and some contracts that are expiring, and we're going to move into this season with our number one prospect as our everyday second baseman. I don't even feel good about that.
Yeah.
And that's not the case, right? The PED suspension makes it scarier because it does make you question the numbers. And you go, he hasn't played in a year. So he's
Yeah.
going to need more ramping up than a normal person would in that situation. So I don't feel good about a Relvis at second base at all. Like,
Me neither. Me
he's
neither.
maybe a midseason call up or trade potential at the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if he's raking in AAA next year and you go, all right, yeah, we're going to move him for a stud closer.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because the team is 11 games over 500 on July 1st and we're cooking. Then we move on from Elvis. Send Tiedemann with him too.
So Mark Ryan replies, Vlad at first base is average on the aggregate. Now, he's got to be talking defensive
Yeah.
stuff here because Vlad is far from average. But yeah, he's I would say average first baseman is a good way to put it. Vlad at third base would not be close to major league acceptable. Brockford replied, he's been good this year, bro. Mark Ryan said he's played 69 innings this year at third base, not really enough playing time to judge. If you want to see how bad he was at third base, look at his 2019 season. He was so far underwater defensively, he wouldn't need eyes because sunlight doesn't penetrate from that far down to make them useful. So that's funny. But I will say, I will push back a little bit here saying 2019 is 5 years ago. Vlad was 20 years old. It was his rookie season. And he has looked a lot better in those 69 games this year. I don't think Vlad is an everyday third baseman. Would love to eat those words. I do think Vlad playing, I don't know, 70 games to 80 games at third base isn't the end of the world by any means, especially if you're able to use that versatility to insert a big bat. Let's say you get Anthony Santander, who can play some outfield and DH, and you get, I don't know, just throwing it out there. I know this is really pie in the sky kind of dreaming here, but a Pete Alonso who can also play half DH and half at first base, and that gives you the ability to move Vlad over, you know. In this scenario, you're not bringing in a third baseman, right? In this scenario, you're rolling with an Ernie Clement, something like that, and dealing with the lack of defensive prowess. Now, Dolchamerist, good friend of the show, been with us commenting for literally since the beginning, I think. Dolce chimes in and says, Vlad was a rookie in 2019, was going through all the stuff rookies go through. Vlad's body and knowledge of the game are different now as well. His 2019 stats at third base are so old at this point that can't really be used to judge 2024-25 Vlad at third base either. That said, I don't want to move to third base. The Braves tried that with Freddie Freeman long ago, and it affected his offensive output at the time. Mark Ryan responds with, considering Vlad moved his way through the minors as a third base, there should be no adjustment transition at the position. Hey, Dolch, long time no see. So I'm kind of on board with what's going on here. I will say I don't think we should and can judge Vlad really harshly at third base. I don't think it's fair to be like, well, he came up as a third baseman through the minor leagues. At 20 years old, you are what you are. I I do think there's just so much more development that goes into a position like the hot corner.
Well, it's the same struggles that a hitter goes through making the leap from AAA to double or to Major League Baseball, right? It's like the
Mm-hmm.
pitchers are just it's the biggest leap in your development, right?
It's
So
the
the
biggest leap.
pitchers are pinpointing better, they're game planning better, they're throwing harder, and then defensively, it's the same thing, right? Like, how many scorching 115 mile an hour ground balls are you getting at third base playing in AAA? Maybe one all year,
Yeah.
right? Whereas it's just like a regular thing, and again, sure, not every ball is 114, but like it all scales, right? If the top in AAA is 100 and most of them are 85, and at the major league level, the top is 114, but most of them are 100, then you go, yeah, okay, you're gonna fucking your reaction time, you're gonna get blown up on a couple, and guys are faster running out of the box, like so. Yeah, like I don't know. I'm not trying to be a Vlad apologist at third base, and
No,
I'm
no.
also I'm also not advocating that we have
Move him to
seen
third.
enough
Yeah.
from the 9 times that he's played third base this year. I don't like look at those 9 games and go, "Oh, this guy could do third base now." Right?
Mm-hmm.
He's got 9 games at third base, 2 errors, fielding percentage in 920. I don't want to get into the other advanced defensive metrics. Don't start me there. But this is the argument for playing him there more this year. Like this was a wasted opportunity. We should have, as soon as the trade deadline went by, been like, Vlad, you're a full-time third baseman because there's no way we can confidently start you at third base next season based on, yeah, a bad third base campaign 5 years ago and then 9 games here this year. We need to see 60 and we still won't know. Like, right? But that was the
I'm
argument
with you.
for, hey, we should have done it. It's too late now. Like even if you started them the next 25 games, you go, well, I don't know if that's a big enough sample size because 60 probably isn't a big enough sample size. But that's the argument. And then I do agree that like, yeah, I don't want to hold what he did against him in 2019 as a rookie and be like, no, we already tried it once, it failed because guess what? In 2020 and 2021, he wasn't any good at first base either.
Yeah, that's true.
And then he played there for a full season and won a gold glove. So like, do I doubt that he can put in the work and figure it out as a 25-year-old in his prime, like that has all the jitters of baseball behind him? I don't know if he ever dealt with that. I mean, the kid grew up around the sport, so I'm sure he's fine. But yeah, the deeper we go into this season without even trying him at third base,
Mm-hmm.
the less confident I am about the press conference on January 1st where we signed Pete Alonso and we go, yeah, Pete's playing first and Vlad's playing third. I'm going, oh, well, okay, we're going to hit some
Yeah.
dingers this year. I know that, but
Yeah. Like, and that's where I'm kind of at is like, I don't particularly like, I'm not really advocating to move Vlad. I kind of like him at first base, but I will say that everything you just said really, it's hard not to think about, right? Like, I just writing him off as not being able to do it because of 2019. I don't think that's the way to go. And I don't really want him there 100% of the time. Like, not to
Well,
repeat myself, but I think having that versatility to have him there for 70, 80 games is huge.
sure. Also, I don't want to move him off of first to make room for Spencer Horwitz.
Yeah. No
Spencer
offense
Horwitz,
to
a great
Spence.
ball player.
Yeah.
Great. Spencer Horwitz, one of the best baseball players in the world. Way better than I could ever hope to be. But he's not the kind of player that you move the face of your franchise out of his position to make
No.
room for Spencer Horwitz or Will Wagner or any of that. Like,
Yeah.
no. Like, the idea of moving Vlad to third is entirely dependent on, oh, we're going to go get a first baseman. We're going to go get, I know Freddie Freeman's not available, but like a Freddie Freeman type or a Pete Alonso or whoever, right? Like, go get an absolute masher at first base who we do not want to see at third, right?
Yeah.
Interesting to note when I was looking at this, because just looking at like third basemen's defensively and stuff. Do you know who leads Major League Baseball in errors at third base this year?
No.
Matt Chapman. So he's also second in baseball in outs above average. So for whatever defensive metrics all contradict each other, he's both terrible at third base and really fucking good at third base. So
Yes.
that's defensive metrics are broken. This has been my TED Talk.
And that has been Mailbag. Thank you so much,
Do you
everybody.
think the UZR on Matt Chapman says he's perfectly average? He's extreme center.
From what these different metrics tell us, he is bad, good, and average.
Yeah. All right. Mailbag.
Thank you so much, everybody. At Walk Off Podcast on Twitter, the Walk Off Podcast on Instagram. Patreon bump exists until Patreon no longer exists. Yeah, so a big thank you to everyone who does help the channel out. We do appreciate it. You can drop your comments right here on YouTube, and we'll do our best to get to them as well. Take care, everybody. We will see you on Friday. Quick little tease here, too. We are talking with Charles McAdoo tomorrow morning. He, of course, was the prospect that the Blue Jays got when they moved Isaiah Kiner-Falefa to the Pirates. So he was the return there. He is mashing currently in Double-A at New Hampshire, and excited to hear about his experience with the trade, what his thoughts are on the Blue Jays organization, and all things that type of thing. All right. Terrible ending, but there we go. Cheers, guys.